Securing a grade 9 in GCSE English Literature is not as hard as you think it is. And this video is going to take you right from knowing nothing about your text to being able to get grade 9s in every single essay you do. But before we get into anything, comment your current GCSE English Literature grade, and either me or someone who's getting a better grade than you will come give you some advice so we can all get 9s. Let's go. This video is going to be split into a 6-step framework. You can either skip to the bit you need most, or in order to get the most value, watch throughout the whole thing, make notes, and maybe come back to it as you go through your GCSE English Literature journey. The first step you're going to need to make in order to start achieving 9s in English is really understanding the text. Now, I'd suggest you do this by either rereading the whole book or watching a summary. And I don't think you need to reread it, because I'll let you into a secret. I hadn't read a full English literature text since year 8, and so I know you definitely don't need to in order to achieve a 9. But what you need to do is understand what's going on. You need to know why the character's doing certain things at certain times. And so watching a summary and making notes is probably the best way to do this with the least amount of effort. And I know a lot of people don't like putting a lot of effort in. So this will give you a fundamental understanding of the text that's going to build the basis of your essays, allowing you to get those higher grades in GCSE English. So you cannot skip this. Moving on. The second part of this 6-step framework is going to be mastering your literary devices. Now, this is because a large fraction of both AQA and Edexcel GCSE English Literature requires you to first of all recognize and then secondly analyze various literary techniques. Now, this might be form techniques, structure techniques, or language techniques, and you must master these and be able to recognize them very quickly to do well in these exams. Because if you don't even know what a metaphor is, how are you even going to be able to find one in the exam? Going to a Quizlet or watching YouTube videos, first of all learning what each of the different techniques are and getting better at finding them in every single extract you do. I'd say you first start with the common techniques. These will be your metaphors, similes, or your sound techniques such as gutturals, plosives, and fricatives. And once you've done this, you can then start progressing to the more complex techniques that very few students will be able to get. For example, epizeuxis or anadiplosis. Once you've gotten to that stage and you're able to recognize them consistently, I want you to practice your analysis on these. You can't always just say it's going to interest the reader, because that's so boring and generic and you're never going to get the top grades with that. The way you can do this is by first of all thinking and trying to develop your own analysis that's specific to each quote, or asking your teachers or YouTube to help you. Once you've done this, you can then move on to the next step of the framework. The third step in this GCSE English Literature framework is quotes. Now, so many people get tied up in memorizing loads of quotes. They create quote banks for each of the characters and just start memorizing instead of really learning the importance of quotes and how to use them properly. Now, I'd say the way you're supposed to do this is, first of all, keep all your quotes on the shorter side. You shouldn't be memorizing long quotes because you might make mistakes when you're memorizing, and you're not going to be able to analyze your quotes properly, and so you're just wasting time. And secondly, you have to make sure that you are able to fully analyze your quotes. This would be either doing the long form analysis or the close technical analysis on word level. Now, once you're able to do this, this is when you can start memorizing different quotes that you know you're definitely going to use in the exam. This fourth tip is arguably the most important thing you're going to do to improve your GCSE grade. Now, it's learning the right paragraph structure. The one I used was PRTEZEL and then C. This might sound confusing, but let me land. This structure follows the point. This is where you put your initial line of argument to give your paragraph a sense of direction. You then have your reference, which will be your evidence from the play or text. This is a quote usually. Then your technique, where you'd recognize the technique. However, you don't always have to do this, but I'll get onto it later. You then have your effect, which is where you analyze it. And don't always put interest the reader, because that's boring. Try to learn many different effects that you can use and try to make it specific to the quote and that instance in the play. But this is what many students miss out on that stops them getting grade 9s. You don't have to zoom into that link, zoom into it and pick out close text analysis. These will be individual words. Then give the effect of this and link it back to your original line of argument. And anywhere between these points, you can interweave context. And I think context is what separates the good from the great in GCSE English. Having context means you're able to recognize the situation which the play or text was written, meaning you're going further out of the book, understanding why the writer has done certain things. Like maybe is the book a didactic that has a certain message, and backing this up with historical evidence. Once you do this, examiners will just see that you're a top grade student and they'll have to move you to the top band. This is how you get those grade 9s. Another important point for essay structure is learning connective words. These are your words like advocate or encapsulate or display, things like that that replace the word shows. You have to use this because you can't simply repeat shows throughout your essay. It shows that you have a really limited capacity to actually write, and the examiner's just not going to move you to the top bands if you keep using simple words like shows. And so I'd say learn a few that you could use regularly throughout your essays, and that should put you in a good position. And lastly is your actual essay structure. This will be whether you do an introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion, or whether you don't do an introduction. I'd say the best way to decide this is if you're a fast writer that's confident with English already, and you're not going to simply repeat your lines of arguments in the introduction, then you should do one. However, if you're a slow writer and all you do is list your lines of argument again in the introduction, you shouldn't do this because this adds no benefit to your overall mark, and it's just a waste of time that might stop you from actually getting to the important part. And in terms of paragraphs, I think you should always aim to do at least 3 main body paragraphs, and if you're able to, make that 4. Although remember, it's much better to do 3 very well developed paragraphs than 4 decently developed paragraphs. The 5th part of this framework is that you have to understand and know what each question wants you to do. The mistake I was making throughout year 10 was that on every single question, I was just recognizing literary devices and analyzing them, consistently doing that. However, some questions just don't want you to do that. On edXL, I know that the poetry and the extract analysis definitely want you to recognize these literary techniques and analyze the effects on the reader. However, some of the 40 markers aren't looking for this. They're more so looking for a progression of different motifs and ideas throughout the play or the text. And so what you should do is go to your specification and look at the assessment objectives that are being examined. Once you know this, you know exactly what to write about. That's one thing that I did that set me apart from many other students. Instead of writing very linearly in your essay and just focusing on one moment, you should have a progression or movement throughout the whole text. And this is what will show that you're really considering the whole text in your essay. And this is what will make sure that you're able to get those grade 9s consistently. And the last step in the 6-part framework is going to be creating those adaptable essay plans that I used and that you can use as well to achieve grade 9s in GCSE English. So the way you do this is first of all trying to find an exhaustive list of all the different characters and major themes within the text or the play. And once you've ticked off all the ones that have already appeared, this is when you have a list of essay plans that you need to make. And what I mean by adaptable essay plans is that you first do your structure, the PRTZELC, and then do a line for each of them explaining what you're going to do in the essay if that was to come up. You then create 3 paragraphs for this. But what you're going to do is make sure that each of the paragraphs you make can also be used for a separate theme. For example, in my Romeo and Juliet, my paragraphs for youthfulness could also have been used for either Juliet herself, Romeo himself, or for the importance of parental figures or the importance of time. Now that's one paragraph that covers 5 different essays. And if you do this, this drastically decreases the amount you have to memorize, meaning you can master the plans you've already made and make sure they're at the grade 9 level analysis. This also benefited me a lot in the exam, given that the question that came up was something I hadn't directly planned, but because I was very adaptable and versatile on the spot, I was able to twist some analysis of a different paragraph and just slot it right in there, fully memorized. The last little point I'm going to make is on the use of AI and ChatGPT. So obviously, I'm sure you know, ChatGPT can just make plans for you and make essays for you on the spot. However, I think you should do this carefully. I do think you should use ChatGPT for your essays, but only once you've reached a high enough skill level where you can recognize when ChatGPT is just making up analysis or making up random things. Once you're at this level, you know that when it uses words like dichotomy, whether it's using it in the right instance or it's just putting it in there to impress you. And once you've done this, you'll be able to use your own skill level and ChatGPT to create the best grade 9 essays, and English will be a breeze. Thank you for watching, and also thank you for 2,000 subscribers. If you like this video, subscribe, and you should probably also watch my GCSE English language video to help you get a grade 9 in that as well, so you can have 2 9s in English. Thanks for watching.